Consequences. Dr. Marcus Chen never expected his quiet Thursday night of stargazing to end with an alien spacecraft crashing into his private observatory. The impact shook his modest Montana home, sending coffee mugs rattling and astronomical equipment tumbling from shelves. As emergency klaxons blared from his security system, Marcus grabbed his emergency kit and rushed outside into the crisp autumn air. The sight before him defied explanation. A sleek vessel, no larger than a small car, had carved a shallow trench through his carefully maintained garden. Its hull gleamed with an impossible metal that seemed to absorb moonlight rather than reflect it. Thin tendrils of violet smoke curled from what he assumed was the engine housing. "Hello," Marcus called out, approaching cautiously. "Is anyone?" A panel slid open with a pneumatic hiss, releasing a cloud of sweet-smelling vapor. Marcus raised his arm to shield his eyes, heart pounding against his ribs. When the mist cleared, he found himself staring at the most beautiful being he'd ever encountered. She, and Marcus's brain automatically assigned the pronoun despite having no real basis for it, stood nearly 7 feet tall. Her skin shimmered with an opalescent quality, shifting between deep purple and midnight blue. 4 arms emerged gracefully from her torso, and her eyes, all 3 of them, blinked at him with obvious intelligence. "Help," she managed in perfect English, before collapsing forward. Marcus barely caught her, surprised by how light she felt despite her height. As he lowered her gently to the ground, he noticed the wound in her side, a perfectly circular hole that pulsed with an inner light. "Hold on," he muttered, reaching for his first aid kit. "I'm a doctor. Well, an astrophysicist, but I still know basic." "No time," she gasped, gripping his wrist with one of her lower hands. "They're coming. The hunters. Must hide." Marcus glanced at the sky, suddenly aware of how exposed they were. "My lab," he decided. "It's shielded. I do some sensitive measurements. Can you walk?" She nodded weakly, and together they made their way to his underground facility. Marcus tried not to think about how surreal this all was, helping an injured alien princess. He assumed she was royalty from her elaborate attire, while keeping an eye out for mysterious hunters. Inside his lab, Marcus helped her onto an examination table. Under the bright lights, he could see her wound more clearly. It wasn't bleeding exactly, but seemed to be leaking pure energy. "I'm Marcus," he said, figuring introductions were in order even in bizarre circumstances. "Dr. Marcus Chen. And you are?" "Lyra Vesh," she replied, her voice melodious despite her obvious pain. "Third daughter of the stellar confluence. And you?" She reached out with one of her upper hands, touching his face gently. "You're either very brave or very foolish to help me." "Probably both," Marcus admitted, trying to focus on examining her wound rather than the tingling sensation where her fingers had brushed his skin. "What did this to you?" "Phase disruptor," she explained. "Not immediately fatal, but it will draw them to me, like a beacon." She pulled something from her garment, a crystalline rod about the size of Marcus's forearm. "This is what they want, the key. I cannot let them take it." Marcus stared at the object, transfixed by the complex patterns swirling within its transparent surface. "What does it do?" Before Lyra Vesh could answer, a deep thrumming filled the air. Her eyes widened in fear. "They're here," she whispered. "The hunters. Please, you must hide this. They'll tear your world apart looking for it." Marcus took the crystal, surprised by its warmth. "What about you?" Lyra Vesh's expression softened. "You're kind, Marcus Chen, but I can't ask you to." The ceiling shook as something massive passed overhead. Dust filtered down through the ventilation system. "You're not asking," Marcus said firmly, helping her to her feet. "I'm offering. Whatever's going on, I'm already involved. And I have a feeling Earth should be involved too, shouldn't it?" Lyra Vesh studied him for a long moment, all 3 eyes blinking in sequence. Finally, she nodded. "Your world is about to change, Marcus Chen. I hope you're ready." "Probably not," he admitted with a slight smile. But when has that ever stopped humanity? Above them, the thrumming grew louder. The hunt had begun, and somehow Marcus knew his quiet life of astronomical research had just become infinitely more complicated and infinitely more interesting. Hidden powers. The laboratory lights flickered as another wave of energy pulsed from above. Marcus watched in fascination as Lyravesh pressed her upper hands against the wound in her side, a soft violet glow emanating from her fingertips. Self-healing? He asked, scientist's curiosity momentarily overriding his fear. Basic molecular reconstruction, she corrected, wincing. All Confluence children learn it, though I was never very skilled at. She stumbled, and Marcus steadied her with an arm around her waist. The hunters, he said, guiding her toward his private research area. What exactly are we dealing with? Lyravesh's 3 eyes darkened to a deep indigo, an expression of dread, Marcus assumed. They're called the Vorkath. Think of them as cosmic bloodhounds mixed with your Earth's most ruthless mercenaries. They can track energy signatures across light years. Like the one your wound is giving off. She nodded grimly. The phase disruptor was deliberate. They wanted to make me easy to follow. A thunderous impact shook the building. Dust and debris rained down from the ceiling. Marcus glanced at the crystal rod he'd hastily stuffed into his lab coat pocket. And this key thereafter. It's not just a key, Lyravesh said, her voice dropping to a whisper. It's T8A key, the original template for consciousness transfer technology. With it, the Vorkath code. The security screens around Marcus's lab suddenly blazed to life. 3 massive figures had landed in his garden, their armor seeming to drink in the moonlight, just like Lyravesh's ship. But where her vessel had been elegant, these beings radiated menace. Their helmets featured multiple rotating sensors, and what appeared to be living metal writhed across their surface. Consciousness transfer, Marcus prompted, trying to keep her talking while his mind raced through possible escape routes. My people discovered how to transfer consciousness between organic and synthetic forms centuries ago, she explained, watching the screens with growing concern. But the key, it can transfer consciousness across space and time itself, in the wrong hands. They could rewrite history, Marcus finished, the implications staggering him. Change the past, control the future. Exactly. Lyravesh straightened, seeming to gather her strength. Which is why I must get it to the Confluence archives. But first. She raised all 4 hands, and the air around them began to shimmer with an otherworldly light. Marcus gasped as reality itself seemed to bend. The laboratory walls became transparent, then seemed to fold in on themselves like origami made of spacetime. What are you? Breaking physics, just a little, she said with a grimace of concentration. It's easier in this region of space. Your planet has interesting properties. Before Marcus could ask what she meant by that, one of the hunters turned its helmet directly toward their location. A harsh, mechanical voice echoed through the lab's speakers. Surrender the key, princess. Your dimensional distortion cannot hide you. No, Lyravesh agreed, but it can do this. She clapped her lower hands together, and a wave of violet energy exploded outward. Marcus watched in amazement as the energy wave passed through solid matter like it wasn't there, but when it reached the hunters. The aliens staggered, their armor briefly flickering with contradictory geometries. One of them actually fell to its knees. What did you do? Marcus asked, already moving toward his emergency exit. Quantum phase multiplication, Lyravesh explained, following him. Their consciousness is temporarily experiencing multiple timelines simultaneously. It's unpleasant. I'll bet, Marcus muttered, pushing open a hidden panel. This way. I have a vehicle in a garage about half a mile from here, through these maintenance tunnels. I use them to access different parts of the observatory. Lyravesh looked at him with newfound respect. You're very well prepared for someone who claims to be just a scientist. Marcus shrugged, helping her into the narrow passage. Let's just say Earth's scientific community has learned to be cautious. Besides, Montana gets rough winters. They hurried through the tunnels as the sounds of destruction echoed from above. Marcus tried not to think about his life's work being demolished by alien hunters. At least he kept backups of his research off-site. They'll recover quickly, Lyravesh warned as they moved, and they'll be angry. The Vorkath hate being reminded that they're still partially organic under all that technology. Speaking of technology, Marcus said, that consciousness transfer you mentioned, is that why I like that? Partial transfer's gone wrong. Very good, Doctor, she replied with a hint of approval. The Vorkath were early experimenters with the technology, but they tried to force it, to weaponize it. The results were unfortunate. Another explosion rocked the tunnel, closer this time. Lyravesh stumbled, and Marcus caught her. He noticed her wound was still pulsing, though more faintly now. You're not healing properly, he observed. The phase disruption prevents complete cellular regeneration, she admitted. I need proper medical attention, but first we must. A section of the tunnel ahead of them suddenly crumpled inward as an armored fist punched through from above. Red sensor lights gleamed in the darkness as one of the hunters began tearing its way through. Run, Lyravesh shouted, raising her hands again. The air distorted, and the hunter's movements became jerky, uncertain. I'll hold them off. Not without you, Marcus said firmly, grabbing her arm. Whatever's going on here, we're in it together now. Besides, he added with a grim smile, I know these tunnels better than anyone, and humans, we're really good at running. Desperate measures. Marcus led Lyravesh through a maze of maintenance tunnels, taking random turns whenever they heard the thunderous footsteps of the hunters above. His mind raced, combining his knowledge of the observatory's layout with the new, incredible reality of alien pursuers. Left here, he whispered, guiding her down a narrower passage. There's a geothermal monitoring station ahead. We can use the thermal signatures to mask our presence. Clever, Lyravesh breathed, her middle eye glowing faintly in the darkness. But the Vorkath's sensors are calibrated for your energy signature, not Earth's natural heat sources, Marcus finished. At least I'm hoping they are. They emerged into a small chamber filled with humming equipment. Steam pipes ran along the walls, and digital readouts displayed the activity of the underground hot springs that dotted this region of Montana. Marcus quickly began adjusting settings on several monitors. What exactly are you doing? Lyravesh asked, keeping watch at the entrance. Creating a distraction. Marcus's fingers flew over the controls. This facility monitors seismic activity, but it also helps regulate pressure in the geothermal system. If I redirect the flow and increase the pressure. A deep rumbling filled the chamber. Somewhere above them, steam burst from a vent with a deafening hiss. Then another, and another. You're venting the thermal energy to the surface, Lyravesh realized, all three eyes widening. Creating multiple heat signatures. And a lot of steam cover, Marcus added with a satisfied grin. How's that for primitive Earth technology? Before Lyravesh could respond, her wound pulsed brightly, and she staggered against the wall. Marcus rushed to support her, noting how her opalescent skin had taken on a worrying grey tinge. The phase disruption is spreading, she said through gritted teeth. Without proper treatment, my cellular structure will begin to break down. Marcus felt the crystal rod shift in his pocket. Can't you use the key somehow? You said it deals with consciousness transfer. She shook her head weakly. The key must be protected at all costs. Using it would alert every Vorkath in this sector of space. Besides, she managed a small smile. I'm not sure your planet is ready for that level of technology. Another explosion rocked the chamber, closer this time. Marcus helped Lyravesh toward the far exit. My car's just ahead. We can. Organic SIGNATURES a metallic voice boomed through the steam. Surrender ESADVIST. Marcus pulled Lyravesh behind a bank of equipment as heavy footsteps approached. Through the swirling vapor, he caught glimpses of living metal armor, those eerie red sensors sweeping the room. The key responds to conscious thought, Lyravesh whispered urgently. If they get too close, they'll sense it. You must leave me and... Not happening, Marcus interrupted. He reached into his lab coat and withdrew a small device. You know what humans are really good at besides running? What? Improvising. He held up the device, a prototype quantum field generator he'd been working on for his dark matter research. Your people might have consciousness transfer, but we've got some tricks of our own. Understanding dawned in Lyravesh's eyes. You're going to create a quantum interference field. Yeah. Marcus began adjusting settings. It won't last long, and it might fry every circuit in a half-mile radius, but it should scramble their sensors long enough for us to reach my car. That's incredibly dangerous, Lyravesh warned. The interaction between Earth quantum technology and their advanced systems cooled. Probably do something very unpredictable, Marcus agreed. But right now, unpredictable is exactly what we need. The hunters were closing in, their armor clicking and whirring as they moved through the steam. Marcus took a deep breath, finger hovering over the activation switch. Ready to run. Lyravesh gripped his arm with one of her lower hands. Marcus Chen, you are either the bravest or most foolish human I've ever met. Still probably both, he said, and pressed the switch. The effect was immediate and spectacular. Reality seemed to hiccup as quantum fields collided with alien technology. The hunter's armor went haywire, sprouting impossible geometries and briefly phasing in and out of normal space. Their sensor arrays exploded in showers of sparks. Now, Marcus grabbed Lyravesh's hand and ran. Behind them, the hunters rolled in rage and confusion, their movements jerky and uncoordinated as their partially organic bodies fought with malfunctioning synthetic components. They burst out of the tunnel into the cold Montana night. Marcus's old Jeep sat right where he'd left it, covered in a light dusting of snow. As they rushed toward it, he caught movement in his peripheral vision, more ships descending from the clouds. They're calling reinforcements, Lyravesh said as they reached the vehicle. Your quantum pulse bought us time, but we need to get somewhere safe, Marcus finished, helping her into the passenger seat. Somewhere with better equipment than my private observatory. He started the engine, mind racing through possibilities. How do you feel about visiting a national laboratory? Lyravesh managed a weak laugh as Marcus floored the accelerator, sending them speeding down the mountain road. You humans never cease to amaze me. Even in the face of impossible odds, you just keep going. Well, Marcus said, checking the rearview mirror for pursuing hunters. Someone very wise once told me that Earth has interesting properties. I'm starting to think that applies to its people too. Scientific solutions. The Jeep's headlights cut through the darkness as Marcus navigated the winding mountain roads. Every few minutes, the sky would light up with the eerie glow of Vorkath ships searching the area. Next to him, Lyravesh's breathing had grown labored, her wound pulsing with increasingly erratic bursts of energy. The National Laboratory, she said between shallow breaths. What makes you think we'll find help there? Marcus took a sharp turn, tires crunching on gravel. Because I have a friend there, Dr. Sarah Martinez. She's been working on quantum healing technology. Theoretical stuff, but he glanced at Lyravesh's wound. Maybe not so theoretical anymore. Quantum healing. All three of Lyravesh's eyes blinked in surprise. Your species has progressed further than our records indicated. We're full of surprises, Marcus said, then cursed as his phone sparked and died. After effects of the quantum pulse. But first we need to reach her without getting caught by your friends up there. As if on cue, a massive shape dropped from the clouds directly ahead of them. The Vorkath hunter landed with enough force to crack the asphalt, its armor rippling with angry red energy. Marcus yanked the wheel hard, sending the Jeep off-road. They crashed through underbrush, branches scraping against the windows. Behind them, the hunter began pursuit, its mechanically enhanced legs eating up the distance with terrifying speed. "I don't suppose you have any more quantum tricks?" Lyravesh asked, gripping the dashboard with all four hands. "Working on it," Marcus replied, mind racing. The laboratory was still 20 minutes away at normal speeds, and they'd never make it with a hunter on their tail. Then he noticed something through the trees, the rail line that served the facility. "Actually, how do you feel about trains?" Lyravesh started to ask, but was cut off as Marcus crashed through a fence and onto the railroad service road. The hunter was closing fast, its footsteps shaking the ground. But up ahead, Marcus could see lights approaching, the midnight cargo train that supplied the laboratory. If his timing was right. "Hold on," he shouted, turning sharply onto the tracks themselves. The train's horn blared as the conductor spotted them. Marcus waited until the last possible second, then swerved off the tracks, just as the hunter leaped for their vehicle. The impact between the alien warrior and the speeding train was spectacular. The hunter went flying, its living metal armor screeching in protest as it tumbled into the forest. The train continued on, its crew likely wondering what they'd just hit. "Primitive but effective," Lyravesh commented, though her voice was weaker now. "You're Sarah Martinez. Will she really be able to help?" Marcus pressed harder on the accelerator. "Sarah's brilliant, and more importantly, she's open-minded. When I was studying unusual energy signatures in the Montana sky last year, she was the only one who took my findings seriously." "You were detecting our scout ships," Lyravesh realized. "The Confluence has been monitoring Earth for some time." "I figured it was something like that. The patterns were too regular to be natural phenomena." He checked his mirrors. No sign of pursuit for the moment. "So why make contact now? Why crash in my observatory of all places?" Lyravesh was quiet for a moment. "It wasn't entirely random. We'd noted your work, your willingness to consider possibilities beyond Earth's current scientific understanding. When the hunters ambushed my ship, I chose your location deliberately." Marcus absorbed this as they approached the laboratory's perimeter. The facility sprawled across several acres, its buildings a mix of old concrete blocks and gleaming modern research centers. At this hour, only security and a few dedicated scientists would be present. "The quantum pulse will have knocked out their security systems," Marcus said as they pulled up to a side entrance. "But it won't last long. We need to move fast." He helped Lyravesh from the vehicle, noting with concern how she seemed to flicker slightly, as if her very atoms were struggling to maintain coherence. The phase disruption was getting worse. Using his keycard, Marcus led them through darkened corridors, grateful for the temporary failure of the surveillance systems. They reached Sarah's lab just as emergency power kicked in, lights flickering back to life. "Marcus." Sarah Martinez stood from her workbench, dark eyes widening as she took in Lyravesh's alien form. What?" "Sarah," Marcus said quickly, "remember that conversation we had about quantum entanglement and cellular regeneration? We need to test your theory, right now." To her credit, Sarah recovered quickly. Her scientific curiosity overrode any shock at seeing a 7-foot-tall, 4-armed alien. "The phase coherence chamber isn't ready for testing, but..." She looked at Lyravesh's wound, then at her equipment. "We could modify it. If we reverse the polarity of the quantum field and introduce a cellular stabilization matrix." "Yes," Lyravesh said suddenly, straightening despite her pain. "You're thinking. It's similar to Confluence healing technology, just approached from a different angle." She reached out with one of her upper hands, quickly sketching complex equations in the air, leaving trails of light that hung there like mathematical ghost writing. Sarah's eyes lit up as she followed the calculations. "Of course, we need to synchronize the quantum states across multiple dimensions, not just stabilize them in this one. Marcus, help me with the equipment. We need tow." A distant explosion cut her off. Through the lab windows, they could see more Vorkath ships descending. "They're triangulating on the key's energy signature," Lyra said grimly. "We don't have much time." Marcus looked between the alien princess he'd somehow come to care for and the brilliant human scientist eager to push the boundaries of human knowledge. "Then let's make it count. Sarah, what do you need?" Sarah was already moving, pulling equipment from storage units. Everything. And a miracle wouldn't hurt. The truth emerges. The laboratory hummed with jury-rigged equipment as Sarah and Marcus worked frantically to modify her quantum healing chamber. Lyra sat within the cylindrical device, her 3 eyes fixed on the crystal key that now floated in a containment field nearby. "The quantum field harmonics are stabilizing," Sarah announced, fingers flying over multiple keyboards. "But these energy readings, they're like nothing I've ever seen." "The key's presence is affecting the local spacetine geometry," Marcus explained, adjusting power flows. "It's almost like it's trying to communicate." Lyravesh's expression tightened. "There's something I haven't told you. About the key, and why the Vorkath want it so desperately." Another explosion rocked the building, closer this time. Through the windows, they could see teams of hunters methodically sweeping the facility grounds, their armor now equipped with additional sensor arrays. "I'd say now's a good time for the full story," Marcus said, initiating the healing sequence. Lyravesh took a deep breath as the chamber filled with shifting quantum energies. "The key isn't just a tool for consciousness transfer. It's alive. Sort of. It contains the merged consciousness of my species' first pioneers into this technology." Sarah's hands stilled on her controls. "Are you saying it's some kind of collective artificial intelligence?" "More than that," Lyravesh continued. "The beings within the key exist in a state of quantum superposition. They can perceive all possible timelines, all potential futures. That's why the Vorkath want it. Not just to transfer consciousness, but to choose which reality becomes fixed." Marcus watched as the healing energies began to repair the phase disruption in Lyravesh's side. "They want to rewrite history, make sure they never failed in their early experiments." "Yes, but they don't understand the true cost. The key's power comes from choice, from the infinite possibilities of free will. The Vorkath would collapse all timelines into a single fixed path. They would end possibility itself." Sarah's monitoring equipment suddenly began blaring warnings. Multiple breaches in the facility's outer defenses, they're inside the building. Marcus looked at the floating key, its internal patterns swirling with newfound intensity. "You said it responds to conscious thought. Can't you use it to stop them?" "Using the key requires complete harmony between organic and synthetic consciousness," Lyravesh explained. "The Vorkath could never achieve it. Their forced merging of flesh and machine left them discordant. That's why they want to rewrite their past." The healing chamber powered down, its work complete. Lyravesh stepped out, her wound fully healed, but her expression was troubled. "What aren't you telling us?" Marcus asked softly. She met his gaze, all 3 eyes filled with regret. "The confluence. We're not much better than the Vorkath. We've become so focused on preserving the key, on maintaining the purity of consciousness transfer, that we've lost touch with what makes consciousness precious to begin with. Emotion, connection, free will. That's why you came to Earth," Sarah realized. "You're not just running from the hunters, you're looking for another way." Heavy footsteps echoed down the corridor outside. The hunters were closing in. "Humans are unique," Lyravesh said quickly. "Your species somehow bridges the gap between organic and synthetic thinking, naturally. Your technology, your science, it's not just about advancement, it's about understanding, about choice." Marcus looked at the equipment they cobbled together, Earth technology and alien science working in harmony. The quantum healing chamber. It worked because you approached it with both scientific precision and intuitive understanding, Lyravesh finished. "You didn't try to force the quantum states to align. You created conditions that allowed them to choose alignment. The laboratory doors burst inward as 3 Vorkath warriors charged in, their weapons trained on the key. Surrender the Coleman Syesnes Koa, their leader demanded. End the tyranny of CAOs. That's what they never understood, Lyravesh whispered. Chaos isn't the enemy, it's the source of all possibility. The key's swirling patterns suddenly intensified, responding to something. Marcus felt a strange resonance, as if reality itself was holding its breath. Marcus, Lyravesh said urgently, I need you to trust me. Both of you. What happens next? It has to be a choice. Before he could respond, she reached out with all 4 hands, 2 grasping the key, 2 reaching for Marcus and Sarah. The world seemed to bend around them as the Vorkath opened fire, but the energy bolts moved impossibly slowly, frozen in a moment of infinite possibility. What are you doing? Marcus asked, though somehow he already knew. Creating a new timeline, Lyravesh answered, but only if you're willing. In that suspended moment, as human innovation met alien technology and free will faced destiny, Marcus realized that the fate of multiple civilizations might hinge on a simple human trait, the ability to take a leap of faith. Choices and consequences. Time hung suspended in the laboratory as Marcus grasped Lyravesh's offered hand. Sarah did the same, her scientist's curiosity overriding any fear. The key pulsed between them, its crystalline structure now a gateway to infinite possibility. Your minds, Lyravesh said, her voice echoing strangely in the frozen moment. Open them. Don't fight what comes next. The world dissolved into pure information. Marcus felt his consciousness expand, merging with the vast quantum network within the key. He saw everything at once. Every choice, every possibility, every timeline branching out like a cosmic tree of infinite complexity. Through this overwhelming cascade of reality, he felt Sarah's presence, her analytical mind helping him pass the quantum data streams. And there was Lyravesh, her consciousness, a familiar anchor in the chaos. The confluence, she communicated directly into their minds. They were right about the power of consciousness transfer, but they forgot why consciousness is precious to begin with. In the quantum landscape, they could see the truth of her words. The confluence had become static, a civilization so focused on preserving consciousness that they'd forgotten to live. The Vorkath, in their desperate bid to force evolution, had shattered their own ability to truly merge with synthetic systems. But humans, Lyravesh continued, you found a middle path without even realizing it. Images flashed through their shared consciousness, Earth's halting steps toward artificial intelligence, the careful development of quantum computing, the preservation of emotion and creativity alongside technological progress. Humans weren't perfect, but they understood instinctively that advancement without heart was meaningless. The key doesn't just transfer consciousness, Marcus realized, understanding flowing through him like electricity. It's a bridge between organic and synthetic, between order and chaos. Yes, Lyravesh confirmed, and now we have a choice to make. In their expanded awareness, they could see the Vorkath warriors frozen in mid-attack, their partially synthetic minds burning with single-minded purpose. But deeper, in what remained of their organic cores, there was pain, the agony of beings trapped between flesh and machine, desperate to undo their mistakes. We can help them, Sarah's consciousness whispered. The quantum healing technology, if we combine it with the key's ability to transfer consciousness. It would be dangerous, Lyravesh warned. We'd be rewriting the basic structure of their hybrid existence, and the confluence would have to accept that evolution means change, Marcus completed. That preserving consciousness doesn't mean freezing it in amber. In that moment of shared understanding, the key's patterns shifted. The consciousnesses within it, the ancient pioneers of consciousness transfer, responded to their collective choice. Power surged through their linked minds, and reality began to reassert itself. The frozen moment shattered. Energy bolts from the Vorkath weapons curved impossibly through the air, drawn to the key like moths to flame. But instead of destroying, they were absorbed, transformed. The hunters staggered as waves of quantum energy washed over them. Their living metal armor stopped writhing, settling into more harmonious patterns. The harsh red glow of their sensors softened to a gentle blue. What? What is happening to us? The lead hunter's voice had lost its mechanical harshness, becoming almost musical. Integration, Lyravesh explained, still holding Marcus and Sarah's hands. True integration, freely chosen. Your organic and synthetic components are finding balance. The other hunters were examining themselves in wonder as their armor shifted from weapon to complement, technology working with flesh instead of trying to dominate it. Through the laboratory windows, they could see more ships arriving, but not Vorkath vessels. The elegant curves of Confluence craft descended from the Montana sky, their arrival somehow both threatening and hopeful. They'll want to stop this, Lyravesh said. The Confluence fears change almost as much as the Vorkath sought to force it. Marcus squeezed her hand. Then we show them another way. Earth is proof that organic and synthetic evolution can coexist. That consciousness can grow without losing its heart. Sarah was already at her computers, documenting the quantum changes they'd initiated. We'll need to work fast. The energy patterns are stabilizing, but we'll need to prove this isn't just a temporary fix. Outside, Confluence peacekeepers were deploying around the facility. The transformed hunters stood ready, their newfound balance giving them a serenity none of them had known for centuries. It won't be easy, Lyravesh said, looking at the key still floating between them. We're not just changing bodies or minds now. We're changing civilizations. Marcus smiled, thinking of humanity's long history of facing impossible odds. Good thing you crashed in the backyard of a species that specializes in beating the odds. The key pulsed once more, as if in agreement. The next few hours would determine the fate of 3 civilizations. But for the first time since she'd fled her people with the key, Lyravesh felt truly hopeful. Maybe it wasn't an accident that she'd found Earth, found Marcus. Sometimes the most important choices were the ones your heart made for you.